Yo, what's going on, guys? Crispy Flakes here. Welcome to Extra Crispy. So as we all know, the NBA is filled with a ton of overrated players, guys that really hype up but don't really ever amount to doing anything successfully in the NBA when it comes to winning championships and all that good stuff. And on the other side of the spectrum, we do have the NBA's most underrated players, guys that just go completely under the radar, hugely important to a team's success and really have potential to be the guys that take your team to the next level. So for today's video, we are going to go through every NBA team's most underrated player. You guys go in the comment section below and let me know who you think your team's most underrated player is. As a Detroit Piston fan, I would say most underrated would probably be a tie between Isaiah Stewart and Killian Hayes, just because those both were like, well, Isaiah Stewart made the all-rookie team. Killian Hayes had a good end to the season, but 2K gave him a damn 71 overall, man. So he had a really good end to the NBA season. I know a lot of people didn't watch the Pistons at that time, because why would you? But yeah, I think he's better outside of like the offensive stuff, which I think will come in time. But okay, here we go. First one we have is the Atlanta Hawks with DeAndre Hunter. I definitely agree with this. Hunter, when he's like healthy and everything, he was a monster for this team, man. I think at one point he was averaging like 16 points a game. Has had some struggles with injury and everything like that, but he was like the fourth pick in the draft or whatever, was like 2 seasons ago. I really like DeAndre Hunter a lot, man. I think he's even has potential, especially if he can stay healthy, to be like a most improved player on the team next NBA season. I like his game a lot. Next up, we have Peyton Pritchard of the Boston Celtics. So this kid right here, man, just dropped like 2,000 points in some sort of summer type of game or something like that. But yeah, I hear a lot of people saying that, well, the team getting Dennis Schroeder and everything like that, losing Kemba Walker, this team doesn't really have much for the point guard spot. Peyton Pritchard, maybe he's not a starting point guard right now in the NBA, but I definitely think he should get some minutes next season. And honestly, I would go as far as being like, let's continue using Marcus Smart as the shooting guard of the team instead of putting him at point guard, rotating with Dennis Schroeder, and just give Peyton Pritchard some minutes out there, right? I also like Carson Edwards a lot on the Boston Celtics too, although the defense not great with Edwards at the moment, but the offense is there. With the Brooklyn Nets, we do have Nicholas Claxton. Yeah, the issue with Nicholas Claxton is that, I for one think that he can definitely lock down some minutes as the center spot for this team, but he needs to add more to his frame. Where I feel like he's one of those dudes that's like borderline. You can be like, well, maybe he's like more built like a power forward, but he definitely has to beef up a little bit to contend with some of the other big veteran centers in the NBA and the Eastern Conference. Next up, we got Scary Terry for the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, initially when this guy got signed to his contract by the Hornets, a lot of people said it was a big time L for the team, but he's definitely lived up to it. He just got himself recently a new extension with the squad. So yeah, Terry Rozier. This dude is a bucket, man. Like, I like him at the 2 spot next to LaMelo Ball, giving them another decision maker, another ball handler on the team, and a guy that can really score the basketball. So he's a very good player for the Charlotte Hornets. Next up, we have DeMar DeRozan for the Chicago Bulls. Yeah, DeRozan is victim of the 3-point shooting virus, where we're all just like, oh, he can't shoot threes, so he's a trash player. Not too long ago, man, like a very recent, not so distant NBA past, DeMar DeRozan was being argued as like top 2 shooting guard in the NBA. Like people were comparing DeMar, being like, well, he's better than Klay Thompson. Like that was the thing for like the number 2 spot. James Harden was number 1, obviously, but not too long ago, man, DeMar DeRozan was that guy. So and his game's not really changed a lot outside of that. He just still can't shoot threes. It's just the 3-point shots become even more prevalent in recent years, more so than ever. Next up, we have Colin Sexton for the Cleveland Cavaliers. 2 trillion% agree on this one, man. I, once upon a time, was a Colin Sexton doubter, but I started watching his game more and just his, just like the way you present yourself on the basketball court, you can really see a lot about a guy and what the future is going to hold. And Colin Sexton, no doubt in my mind, man, for his career, at least, in the top tier of it, can be like 20-point, few assists, plays good defense type of guy. And those are really good guys to have in the NBA. I like his game a lot, man. Next up, we have Reggie Bullock for the Dallas Mavericks. So I watched Reggie play quite a bit for the Detroit Pistons. Good spot-up 3-point shooter, a guy that can create a little bit for himself. Probably not the optimal part of his game. But I do see him being like that new Seth Curry for this team. So obviously Seth Curry was on the 76ers last year, but the season before he was on the Dallas Mavericks, had himself a really good season. And I can see that happening with Reggie Bullock too. Like he's going to fit in at that 2 spot, a little bit of the 3 spot, and it's going to be good. Next up, we have JaMychal Green. Yo, it did say for the Mavericks, right? Okay. I saw him in Knicks jersey, but he hasn't played a game yet. We got JaMychal Green for the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, JaMychal Green is what you just call a role player. Like, JaMychal Green is a good, solid role player in the NBA. You don't really hear too much about him, but he goes out there, plays his minutes. He does it pretty well. And, to me, he's... I've always said JaMychal Green was like the offensive version of Draymond Green. It always made me laugh because they're both last name is Green, obviously. But you know, like Draymond and JaMychal, if you combine them both together, it would be like the most complete NBA player of all time. Next up, we have Killian Hayes for the Detroit Pistons. Yes, I already pretty much talked about him in the beginning of the video. Agree with this 2 billion%, man. I guess that's my new saying is 2 billion%. But a lot of people hating on Killian Hayes because he had a slow start to the season, had a really bad injury. But he's another guy where it's like if you look beyond the scoring right now, you see a lot of good things. It's the same thing that Ben Simmons suffers from. Although Ben Simmons has been in the NBA for quite a few seasons now, Killian Hayes is going into his second year. So, okay, we have Toscano Anderson for the Golden State Warriors. I know of this guy. I don't know much about him, so I would assume that makes him underrated, at least in my book, because I don't know anything about him, man. So, there's a lot of stats going on right here. Damn, they got a lot to say about him. Okay, I'll agree with that. I'm sure Warrior fans will be like, oh yeah, Toscano, the guy's a beast, but I don't know much about him. We got David Nwaba for the Houston Rockets. Yeah, he seems like a guy that kind of goes around to do quite a few different teams, leaves a decent impact, but just never solidifies a roster spot. Although I think maybe he locked up a little bit of a contract with the Houston Rockets. Honestly, I don't see him getting a ton of playing time, though, because this team already has a slew of, like, guards on the squad. So, lucky for him, I think David Nwaba is a pretty solid defensive player, so he might get a little spot at the three, a little playtime at the 3 spot, too. He's got a 6'9" frame, so even that, like, small ball power forward. So, yeah, we're in that type of NBA now, aren't we? Indiana Pacers, we have TJ Warren. I don't know if TJ Warren's underrated. I think we all recognize how great he was in the bubble before last season, and that he was derailed by injuries this previous season, right, man? So, yeah, I've always been team TJ Warren. I think he's really good. I think maybe my pick for this team would probably actually be Miles Turner. Miles Turner's name seems to get tossed around in like trade rumors a lot, and I don't think we realize just how important he is to the Pacers, and really also playing alongside Sabonis, and how, in my opinion, it just kind of works. Next up, we have Nicholas Batum for the Clippers. Hey, man, when he had that bitch-ass contract with the Hornets, that was not great times then, but on a minimum contract, yeah, he's a good player. You know, a spot-up three-point shooter, knock it down in the corner, play a little bit of defense, can play multiple positions. He was a good signing for that team. We got the Lakers with Malik Monk as the most underrated player. So now Russell Westbrook. People might say Russell Westbrook's underrated these days. He's rated 85 overall in 2K, by the way, 2K22. But Malik Monk, yeah, he seemed to like settle himself into like some nice moments on the Charlotte Hornets. I just think that they wanted to commit more to obviously having Terry Rozier. They also got Bouknight with their draft pick. So no, he looked like he was breaking out a little bit at times for the Charlotte Hornets. So yeah, that's a good pick right there. Next up, we have Kyle Anderson for the Memphis Grizzlies, aka the slowest player in NBA history. I've liked Kyle Anderson going back to his San Antonio Spurs days. You watched when he was being coached by Popovich, and the player he was coached as he was, but also the player he became. He's just one of those jack-of-all-trades guys, man. I always feel that Anderson is similar to like a glue guy for a championship team, where he's just the guy that plays tough and brings you a little bit of everything. Next up, we have Kyle Lowry for the Miami Heat. I don't really think Kyle Lowry's underrated. I don't think he's an underrated player. I think people recognize how good a signing this was for the Miami Heat, and maybe the only thing you can argue here as far as underrated is the age. People are like, well, he's getting kind of old. I would say more so maybe Bam Adebayo. I don't think people realize just how good of a center Bam Adebayo is. Sometimes I don't even realize how good a center he is. Next up, we have Dante DiVincenzo for the Milwaukee Bucks. That's fair. Definitely one of the better rotational pieces on the team. Obviously, they were able to win a championship without his services in the playoffs. But, yeah, it's really hard to underrate anybody on the Bucks because they just won a championship, right? So what are you going to say? Next, we have Jaden McDaniels for the Timberwolves. Yeah, I think because there's Jaden McDaniels and there's Jalen McDaniels. And I always forget the difference because I'm just like, I think 168, 1610. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I don't know the difference, but I've heard good things about him. We have the Pelicans with Devontae Graham. Yes and no. If you guys go on my main channel, Crispy Flakes, I did an overrated, underrated ranking video for different NBA players, and I personally put Devontae as overrated. Just because, like, I recognize, and overrated does not mean bad. I don't think he's a bad player. I just feel like when he shoots a lot, like, it kind of shows up in the efficiency column. And that doesn't make him a bad player. I don't know if it makes him underrated, though. I do think they took a step back by losing Lonzo Ball over Devontae. So, yeah, I'm going to go with that still. We have Nerlens Noel. Yup, one of the best shot blockers and defensive centers in the NBA. Happy got himself paid with the Knicks. And, you know, I don't really know how this affects Mitchell Robinson going forward. I don't know if we see Mitchell Robinson eventually getting traded or something like that. But, because that is a little wacky how that kind of works out, because both guys are pretty similar in that style, but we'll see. Next up, we have Darius Bazley for the OKC Thunder. Yeah, it seems like anytime I look at the OKC Thunder scoreboard, I'm like, hey, like Darius Bazley has been having himself a decent scoring game. I would also maybe put like Dort on this list, or even Teo Meldon, or Aleksej Pokusevski. Really, there's a lot of like those good like what if players on the Thunder. We're like, yo, like what if this guy becomes a star? Like you can kind of see it kind of developing with the Thunder. Next we have Jalen Suggs for the Magic. Underrated, really? I mean, I think we all recognize that Jalen was like a top pick in the draft, and he's going to be the starting guard for point guard for that team for the next 10 seasons. I guess maybe I would say Jonathan Isaac, but that's only because of injuries. I still think people are like, you know, they kind of attune that to him being an injury-prone player. Like, well, it kind of takes away like how he is as a player, but when he's actually playing, like Isaac is one of the best defense guys in the NBA. We got Danny Green for the 76ers. I'm going to point more towards Andre Drummond, man. Andre Drummond is now on a 1-year deal, probably like $5 million as a backup center. So I think he's better than that. I'm not saying Andre Drummond deserves like a big, huge contract or anything like that, but I think he's better than the role he's going to be playing next season. I think that's fair to say. Next up, we have Cam Johnson for the Phoenix Suns. I agree with this, man. Like, if it was for Jay Crowder being the 4 next season, they're probably going to roll back with that. I would say Cam Johnson, if he starts, is in running for most improved player. I love this kid's game. I like that everybody, you know, kind of got like, are like biting their tongue now, just being like, I guess that was the right draft pick, because he got roasted where he was drafted. The Phoenix Suns did. Next up, we have Robert Covington for the Portland Trail Blazers. I suppose so. I don't know if he's really underrated. I think Robert Covington has kind of taken a step back over the past few seasons. I can't really think of anybody else I would put on that list as far as underrated. Because I feel like on that team, we kind of know who everybody is. Maybe on Anfernee Simons, maybe he could be a bit better if he was given a chance to be a starting point guard for a team, but that's not going to happen with Damian over there. Next up, we have Richaun Holmes for the Sacramento Kings. I don't really think he's underrated. I think Richaun Holmes proved himself last year. I think we all kind of saw that, and he got paid for it. I would say more so as far as, I mean, if we want to talk about rookies, let's talk about Davion Mitchell. This dude was Summer League MVP. It's like, if you want to talk about underrated, maybe a guy that could have been drafted even a little bit higher, right? Next up, we have Dougie McBuckets for the San Antonio Spurs. Got himself a $42 million 3-year deal. That is a lot of money, but maybe that makes him underrated, right? Maybe I'm like, well, that's a lot of money. Maybe he deserves that. Smart player. You know, we all know him mainly from his college days and being a three-point shooter. We got Chris Boucher for the Toronto Raptors. I think the most underrated, I still think it's Pascal Siakam. I don't think he had as bad of season as people are saying he had last year, man. Like, maybe it wasn't as good as the season before. We were one most improved player, but I still think it's Pascal. I still think he's underrated. Chris Boucher is just a good center, though. Or power. I guess people say he's more of a power forward. I don't know. I know he plays a little bit of both. We got Royce O'Neal for the Utah Jazz. I like his game a lot. I agree with this. Definitely a guy, same as Kyle Anderson, where I'm just like, that's like the dude, the glue guy that you're not going to ask to do too much, but it's going to do a little bit of everything. And finally, we have KCP for the Washington Wizards. Okay, man, that is the end of the video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. Be sure to drop that like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and peace out, my friends.